Well, thank you and good afternoon, everyone. Thanks for participating in this discussion, and very special thanks to Bonner Center and OIE for organizing this event. Now, before I venture into the main topic of today's discussion, I want to use this coincidence of this discussion falling on September 11. Of course, those tragic events remind us how interlinked the world is and how processes happening in other parts of the world can impact us in a tragic way, but fortunately we can also impact processes going in other parts in a positive way. So that kind of goes both ways. As you already know, we are here to discuss the case of two young network activists. They're also called bloggers. Adnan Hajizada, who has been a student here at the University of Richmond, and another young activist, Emin Milli. These two have been brutally attacked in a cafe in the capital of Azerbaijan when they went to police to complain. In a case of very twisted justice, the authorities actually detained them instead of the attackers, charged them with hooliganism and put them in jail. Their trial is underway, and most of the observers, both foreign and domestic in Azerbaijan, believe that the attack itself and the arrest is motivated by their political activism, by them being openly critical of the government. Now, we have been already introduced the panel, so all I have to do is just add some little more information about the organization I represent. It's called Azerbaijani-Americans for Democracy, or AZAD, which means freedom in Azeri language. Our mission is to promote US support for democracy and human rights in Azerbaijan. We believe that values of free speech, free elections, individual liberties, those principles that built America are also important in a foreign policy. We support US government's engagement and reflection of these principles in building relations with other countries. So we try to engage Azerbaijani-Americans and any other US public individuals and groups who are interested in this issue. A little bit background about Azerbaijan. It's a small post-Soviet country located in a very turbulent but strategically important area. If you had a map of Azerbaijan, it's located between Russia and Iran, between Caspian Sea and Black Sea, a very oil-rich, but at the same time a very turbulent region bordering Chechnya, Georgia, Iran, close to Iraq and Afghanistan. It had some democracy traditions. In the early 20th century, Azerbaijan established the first ever democratic republic in the Muslim world, which was crushed by Red Army. Then in 91 it regained independence, had 1 year democratic government, which was overturned by a coup, and the current regime, led by former KGB general and Soviet official, was established. That leader died and passed presidency to his son. So that itself shows what type of government Azerbaijan has. The government has been intensifying crackdown against all forms of free speech, suppressing media, kicking out Western radio stations, BBC, Radio Liberty, Voice of America, banning them from local airwaves. Journalists have been murdered, arrested, blackmailed, jailed on bogus charges of drug possession, hooliganism, like in case of Adnan and Emin. So that created a very bad tendency away from democracy, back to dictatorship, back to repressions. The only positive recent development has been that a new generation of activists like Adnan and Emin have been emerging, and they have been picking up the struggle for freedom. It's similar to what you saw on news in Iran lately after elections. The young people are taking lead, they're expressing themselves openly, and they're increasingly using new forms of media like Twitter, Facebook, YouTube, and government is having very hard time of controlling this flow of information because we are not used to these new emerging forms. And youth has also been active and creative in many other ways. For example, when they want to hold a protest rally, instead of announcing it, asking for official permits, they just text message each other, tweet each other, and suddenly you have 10 to hundreds of young people protesting. They tied their protest banners to air balloons, so if police tries to confiscate, they just let them in the air, and the government can do nothing rather than maybe shoot down those. And initially, the authorities underestimated those groups. They ignored them. They didn't believe in their potential. But once they realized, they attacked, they jailed Emin and Adnan, two of the most prominent leaders of these movements. Now, what they miscalculated was the strong international reaction from governments of US, UK, European Union, Norway, Germany, international organizations, anywhere from Freedom House to Amnesty International, Reporters Without Borders. The organization I represent, we held a protest rally 2 weeks ago in front of Azerbaijani embassy, very well attended. And of course, University of Richmond had done a wonderful job. The Collegian newspaper, faculty and student bodies in supporting this cause and covering this story. Now, before I let everybody to watch a little video, which many believe led to arrest of Adnan and Emin. Their groups made this video. It's a satirical video making fun of the corruption in the government, which lately was revealed was importing expensive donkeys into Azerbaijan. So they basically were wasting public money or writing off money laundering, and official statistics showed $41,000 for a German donkey imported. So that's what this video is about. I want to end it on a last Twitter message that the other arrested individual, Emin Milli, had. It cited the message on a trial of Soviet dissident who later became for 1 year president of Azerbaijan. It says that freedom requires sacrifices, and in times like this, people like me have to be arrested. And that was his last Twitter message before he got into jail. So I guess that kind of says the story as a whole. So thank you, and let's watch the video. It's quite funny, actually.
Çok açıklamalar. Çok açıklamalar. Az sonra neler dedi? Az sonra.
Necə deyirlər sizdə? Necə deyirlər sizdə? Frankfurtdan Lütfen şəhərində Frankfurtdan burada 4 fəaliyyətlər yaşadım. Gəlmişəm burada gördək eşəyə. Amma yenə çox sağ olsun, gördək eşəyə. Çimadanlarını tapa bilmədim. Çimadanlarını tapa bilmədim.
Eşeğin çamadanlarını kim apardı? Eşeğin çamadanlarını kim apardı?
Bence yola bilsəmdə şəhərə taşıldı. Şəhərə çıxanda bütün sanatları taşıldı. Şəhərə çıxanda bütün sanatları dolandırdı. Biri qulağından dartdı, biri buyruğundan dartdı. Biri başını çıxartmaq istəyir yerindən. Yəni sizdə sevdiyi insanları belə, tərəfkeşkarlıq etdiyi insanları belə qarşıları yandan. Düşünürəm ki, daha var da. Yəni Avropada, xüsusi olaraq Almaniyada eşyələr üçün çox çətindir. Yəni vəziyyət çətindir. Bizi duygularımızı tozlara içeri bırakmıyorlar. Ama Azerbaycan'da da olsaydın, çok Türk eşeği olmak istiyordu.
Eşek Azerbaycan'ı niye beğendi?
Azerbaycanlarda eşeğler için liberal bir imkanlar var. Sen de yeterince eşeğliği varsa sen geldiğinde. Yani her şeyin ayrı orada. Eşeğliğine, eşeğ hareketleriyle. Yani Azerbaycan'da olsa bir çok yeniden eşeği olmak istiyordu ve daha huzurlu olan. Daha sıra eşeğliği yani. Yani ben fikrim budur. Çünkü ben fərqliyəm. Yəni, mən artıq qoyam.
A kategoriyalı eşek.
Yəni o mən olandan sonra mən Avropadanam, Avropa mədəniyyəti görmüşəm, Avropa təhsili görmüşəm, 3 dildə danışa bilirəm, Allah şəkildə, Alman dili, İngilis dili, həm də gördüyünüz kimi, yəni Azərbaycan dili danışıram. Həm də mən skripka ifa edirəm.
Eşek skripkada ifa etti.
Bu deməli Avropada liberal eşəklər assosiasiyası var. Mən assosiasiyanın bir üzvüyəm və Azərbaycanda gələndə yəni eşəklərin hüquqlarının qorunması, yəni bir NGO, bir təşkilat, bir heyət yaratmaq istəyirdim. Amma indi mətbuatda oxuyuram ki, qəzetələrə bağlamaq istəyirlər, nə də parlamentdə təzə qanun var, onun müzakirəsi gedir. Yəni bundan sonra çox çətin olacaq mənim ictimai fəaliyyətim. Yəni hətta eşəyə də ictimai fəaliyyəti icazə verirlər. Eşəyə icazə vermirlərsə adamı necə verəcəklər? Mən başa düşmürəm. Hörmətli jurnalistlər, əgər heç kimin sualı yoxdursa, yəni mən getməliyəm. Bugün milli eşəklərlə mənim görüşüm var. Yəni çox sağ olun.
Well, the person in a donkey suit was Adnan. He and Emin came up with the idea of the video.
My turn. As you heard, my name is Stephanie Rice. I'm the news editor for the Collegian this year, and I was one of the reporters who worked on a majority of the stories that were in the Collegian about Adnan. And basically, I wanted to go through this in kind of a chronological order. And this all started on July 8th, was when Adnan and Emin were arrested. And for the Collegian, we have had the online version of the newspaper since last summer, so it's fairly new. And luckily we had it because we were able to cover this. On July 14th, the New York Times article came out about this, which actually had the video and talked about all the events, and that was when really the start of people beginning to get together and to start to speak out about this. And we received an email from one of our other reporters, Dan Petty, who did a lot of the reporting. He graduated, well, he hasn't officially graduated yet. He finished last year. And he had received an email from that had been circulating through faculty and staff in the Office of International Education, and that's how it came to us. So we received that email about 2:31 in the morning Eastern time, but I was in California at home with my family, and so it was about 11:30 p.m., and 2 hours later we had a story up on the website. And it wasn't extremely detailed, there wasn't a lot of information yet, but we had the ability to put that up on the internet, and I'll talk a little bit more about all of the relations and everything to Adnan and Emin's work after this. So we put up that story, and it was instantly popular. We can view how many people view the webpage and how many people read the stories, and it had all just begun. We dispersed it, and people had already become interested in the story, and it just kept going from there. The next thing we did was try to get in contact with Adnan's father, Hikmet, who was in Azerbaijan, and so we had an email address for him. He sent us his phone number, and there's a 10-hour difference between California and Azerbaijan, so it was interesting, but I was able to get some kind of plan on my phone and call him, and that was when I spoke with him, even though it was a very difficult conversation to have, because not only the language barrier, he speaks very good English, I speak no Azeri, but there was a reverb on the phone. I could hear myself talking, and it made it interesting, but was still able to talk to him, and that is when he talked to me about how Adnan came to Richmond and how studying here and being involved in Young Democrats and taking political science classes and all of those different things really got him involved in just democracy and the ideas of government and freedoms. And so we wrote that story. Dan and I worked together on that, and that went up on July 16th, so a day later, again at like 2 o'clock in the morning, our time. And from there it continued. We were able to talk to his girlfriend, Adnan's girlfriend, via Facebook. Dan sent her a Facebook message, and she was able to reply. So that was another way of communicating. We only talked to Adnan's father on the phone. That is the only actual person we talked to on the phone that was in Azerbaijan. Everything else was done via Twitter or Facebook. We found out a majority of our information from Twitter, from Ol Media, which is the, did I say that correctly?
Yeah.
Okay. The organization that Adnan started, his youth movement, they have a Twitter page, and we got a majority of our information from them. And then we found out about the letter that the professors were sending to different government officials, and I spoke with Dr. Wang, and we had that story, and it continued on from there, various Twitter tweets that we found out about, looked up, and verified on different internet websites. So most everything was done on the internet, and there were a few other things going on for the Collegian at the same time. We had the chaplaincy search was going on, and so we were working on that at the same time, and we had it was basically Dan and I who were available, so we were working on all of that. And I mean, I have all these dates and all of these times. I don't know how relevant they are, what everyone wants to know. I feel like what I have to say will be more on what your questions are. But it continued all the way through July, and then August 3rd, we found out that he was going to be having a hearing on September 8th, and then on they had an appeal, and Dan worked on a few things while I was on vacation at the beach. And then when I came back, the appeal had been rejected, and on August 19th, we found out about the various supporters, and I think it was AZAD that sent the letters to Congress, and we found out about that also via email and through the internet, and just continued to follow the story. And I get emails from Hikmet, Adnan's father, constantly about different updates and things like that. And I spoke with him a few other times on the phone just to confirm information that we had received. And the latest news, as far as I know, is that there have been different meetings with some government officials that are underneath the president, and there was an article online that was sent to me yesterday that is supposedly from Routers. I haven't confirmed anything yet that there was a meeting, and they're pretty confident that there will be some kind of compromise, but they don't know what it is and when it'll be, and it's still kind of iffy on when the trial date's going to be. So that's the latest information that we have. And then, of course, we had one of our other former reporters who actually was one of the people who started the website, Kimberly Leonard, was at the protest and was able to be there for that. She was in the area. So one of the things that has stood out to me about this whole process is the fact that, you know, these activists were arrested for using different forms of media to speak out against the government. They're using the internet, Facebook, Twitter, YouTube, and that's exactly what we've done. And as a journalist, well, a journalist in training, you know, we're not supposed to and we can't and shouldn't put any of our opinion in the stories, but we can exercise our right to free speech so that others can be informed about this, people can be informed, and that they can act out and do something about it. So I just feel like we are very fortunate to have the university and to have the Collegian and to have just the different forms of media that we have that have allowed us to do something about this. Because any violation of free speech, of free expression, of a free press is detrimental to a democracy, and that is, you know, what we are looking for Azerbaijan, what the youth and what the bloggers and activists have been looking for and trying to get. So we are going to continue to cover this as much as possible, and I encourage everyone, not just because it's the Collegian and I work for them, but to encourage everyone to stay updated with the Collegian, New York Times, Reuters, Associated Press, the different news agencies.
All the news.
Exactly. There's an enormous amount of news coverage on this to stay updated and to stay connected and to figure out what you can do, because even as individuals, this is a big part of my journalism training, is that, you know, one person can make a difference in how this works and in the progression and the, I can't think of the word, but to promote free speech, which is, I don't know, is so vital and something that I believe very strongly in. So I appreciate the opportunity to be here and to be working with the different groups on campus so that we can just keep people informed. That's really what the Collegian aims to do, is to keep people informed. So, but you also have to do the reading and do the clicking. So, and to send your links and send them to friends and Twitter and Facebook and do everything that we have the right to do here in America, so that those who don't can hopefully someday have that right also. So.
Great. My name is Vincent Wang. I think my previous two panelists have done a very good job of setting up the context, and Stephanie is definitely very articulate. You're right, freedom of speech is fundamental. So my approach is try to share with you my observations at two levels. One is the sort of the big picture, how to generalize from this case. The other is the small picture, how to particularize this. I think on the big picture, Elmar has done a very good job. You get the picture that even though I teach international relations, comparative politics, I don't speak the language. I'm not an expert of Azerbaijan, although some colleagues in my department know more about the country than I do. Dr. Gavara probably knows more about the former Soviet Union than any of us here. But I don't need to know the language to be able to study it in a comparative context, because this country share a lot of characteristics. For example, has a very strong authoritarian legacy. It's a former communist country. Even though its government has 3 branches, but it's dominated by the executive branch, and you still have the continued influence of former communists who just change a different hat. They call them Democrats and so on. The restrictions on the media, Elmar has mentioned before, and in this case, I should caution everybody that communist regimes thrive at controlling information. You know, so they have also kept up with technology. They have controlled the press, they have controlled the newspapers, radio, television before, and the Azeri government is no exception. They want to broadcast the official version. So this new technology, which gives us a lot of opportunities, actually seems pretty seditious to them. So they are also trying to keep up. The human rights conditions are, according to the State Department, remain poor and in fact have backslided in many cases. According to Freedom House, Azerbaijan is not a free country. The political rights is 6. It's 6 out of 7, 7 being the lowest, and civil liberties is 5. So you get the picture. But at the same time, as Elmar mentioned, this country is strategically important and in fact so rich in natural resources that it has the promise of equalized wealth for everybody. What happens, however, is that, like many countries, that you have a very wealthy small elite, small group of elites, but the mass majority of the population remains poor. This can be seen from the Human Development Index. But the dilemma for U.S. foreign policy, as far as I am concerned, sort of a professor of political science, is summed up very well by the U.S. Agency of International Development. Azerbaijan is an important U.S. ally due to its strategic geopolitical location and its expanding importance as a source of oil and gas. The United States has a deep and abiding interest to help Azerbaijan make the best use of its energy resources and to strengthen its secure democracy in a predominantly Muslim nation. I think this sentence summarizes very well the dilemma in terms of U.S. foreign policy. Yes, we care about human rights. Human rights is an objective of foreign policy, but it has to be stacked up against other strategic interests, natural resources, and this civilizational outreach to a predominantly Muslim country. So, so that's the sort of the big picture I want to share with you. Now, moving on to the small picture to particularize why I feel strongly about this case and why some other faculty, as you know, 18 faculty and administrators collectively signed that letter of appeal. Why do we do that? When the bad news first circulated, we each and also collectively face agonizing choices because this case raised some tension between, on the one hand, academic freedom, which is very fundamental to academia, personal beliefs or even politics, convictions, advocacy on the one hand, and on the other hand, that professors try very hard to be quote unquote neutral, objective, stay away from politics in classrooms, right? I mean, I think that many students will appreciate that sometimes if a professor projects his or her personal politics too much in classroom, that is not very much appreciated. So we agonize over that. And also, they raise the question about the extent of faculty-student relationship after the student has graduated. Granted, this is University of Richmond. We take pride in our close faculty-student relationship. We take personal interest in our students. But does our responsibility end after they have graduated, especially if it's so far away, right? It also raised the issue about the role of outside forces. Obviously, this is going to be seen as interference in internal affairs. Will we help actually or hurt the cause of their release? And also, we were faced with imperfect information because initially, all the information came from Adnan's families, girlfriend, or supporters. Obviously, they gave us an account which was very disturbing, very troubling, but of course the officials gave us another account. So based on this background, we made a decision. We very much, as persons who believe, at least I can speak for myself, who believe in freedom of speech very much, we decided to do something. So we decided to write a letter. All the professors and administrators are voluntarily to sign the letter, so we act in our personal capacity. We are not pretending that there is a university response, but we keep our top administrators, namely president and provost, informed, and they neither encourage us nor discourage us. And in the end, we decided to take advantage of Azerbaijan government's use of technology. It turns out that Azeri president's office has a website, so we just sent one letter to his website. I'm sure that he has received it, but he has chosen not to respond, of course. And also send a letter to him through the Azeri embassy, and also we think we need to pressure them. So we also sent a letter to our elected official, Senator Jim Webb and Congressman Eric Cantor. Why do we do that? Well, I mean, as I said, at a human level, I have concern about a former student, even though I myself have not taught Adnan, but I have heard, like Dr. Gabara said, how wonderful a student he was, and especially very civilized, could not be considered as a hooligan. And I also feel a kind of a sense of responsibility because if it is true that his democratic ideas were fermented when he was here, do we have some kind of a responsibility, right? And also, I feel that I know how hard it is to be a political dissident, even though I think Elmar is completely right that to promote democracy, which many of us take for granted, but in many parts of the world, it's not taken for granted, and you have to be prepared to sit in jail and all that. And it's a personal, huge personal sacrifice. I talked to the top of a Democratic Party in Singapore, which of course is very advanced, but cannot be called an electoral democracy. And I got the feeling, so it's out of a personal admiration. I actually admire what Adnan and Emin are doing. So I decided to sign my name on it. In fact, led the letter writing campaign. And furthermore, he was one of the majors from my department. So as department chair, I kind of let my parental instinct slip in. If this were one of my children, what would I do? So I went the extra step. Apparently, we decided to take an angle of Adnan's former teachers, because this is an angle that would give us some kind of an opening for legitimate intervention. But even if they don't appreciate it, I think that in this day and age, in the era of globalization, close authoritarian oil-rich regimes such as Azerbaijan must be beholden to the international opinion. They want to look good, they want to appear good. So our calculation is that the more international publicity this will generate, the safer they are. Just to give you one piece of information before I end, what this will happen, Stephanie has speculated about this. I'm hoping that they will be released. Obviously, that's our object. And in 2007, the very generous Azeri president had released 15,000 political prisoners on humanitarian ground. Now, this can be cut both ways. On the one hand, he's very generous. He can release them, right? On the other hand, you can see that how easy it is to become a political prisoner. In my mind, there's no question they are political prisoners. Thank you.
Thank you.